My name is Ava, and I am 34 years old. 8 years ago, I married a man I thought would love me forever. Last Friday on our anniversary, he sat across from me at the dinner table I had spent hours preparing. He placed a stack of papers between the candles and smiled. "Accept my mistress, or we will end this marriage on my terms." He expected tears. He expected begging. But what I did next wiped that smug smile right off his face. Before we dive into this story, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below, and while you are at it, hit that like button and subscribe, if you have not already. Trust me, you will want to hear how this unfolds. Let me take you back to where it all began so you can understand why his smug smile disappeared so quickly. I met Derek at a business conference in Chicago exactly 10 years ago. I remember that day like it was yesterday. The conference hall was packed with professionals in crisp suits, everyone networking and exchanging business cards like they were trading precious commodities. I was there representing my small interior design company, the one I had built from the ground up after graduating from design school. I was 24 years old, ambitious, and completely focused on growing my business. Derek walked up to my booth during the afternoon session. He was 37 now, but back then he was 27 with dark wavy hair and a smile that seemed genuine. He worked in marketing for a mid-sized company, and he was charming in a way that did not feel rehearsed. He asked questions about my work, genuinely interested in the fabric samples and mood boards I had displayed. Most people at those events just collected brochures and moved on, but Derek stayed for nearly an hour. We exchanged numbers that day, and what started as professional conversations quickly became personal. He would call me in the evenings, and we would talk for hours about everything and nothing. He told me about his dreams of becoming a marketing director, about how he wanted to build something meaningful with his career. I shared my own ambitions, my vision of expanding my design firm across the East Coast. We understood each other, or at least I thought we did. After 2 years of dating, Derek proposed on a beach in California during a sunset that painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. I said yes, without hesitation. Our wedding took place at a vineyard in Napa Valley, surrounded by rolling hills and the sweet scent of ripening grapes. I wore my grandmother's pearls, and when Derek looked into my eyes and said his vows, I believed every single word. The first few years of our marriage were genuinely happy. We laughed together, cooked together, dreamed together. Derek was affectionate and supportive, always encouraging me to take on new design projects. But as his career began to demand more of his time, things slowly started to shift. Derek got promoted to a senior position, and suddenly his schedule became unpredictable. He asked me to consider working from home more often so I could be available when he needed support. At first it seemed reasonable. He was building his career, and I wanted to be a supportive wife. So I started turning down opportunities that would have required me to travel or work late hours. I declined a partnership offer from a prestigious design firm in New York because Derek said he needed me in Philadelphia. When Derek decided to pursue his MBA, I did not hesitate to support him financially. I used nearly $40,000 from my savings to cover his tuition and expenses. He promised it was an investment in our future, that once he reached the executive level, we would reap the benefits together. I believed him because I wanted to believe in us. Then his mother, Diane, got sick. She had a heart condition that required constant care for 6 months, and Derek asked me to step in since he could not take time off work. I put my projects on hold and spent my days driving Diane to doctor appointments, preparing her meals, managing her medications. She was not always kind to me, often criticizing how I kept the house, or suggesting that her son could have married better. But I swallowed my pride, because I thought this was what family meant. Through all of this, Derek climbed the corporate ladder. He became the marketing director at his company, earning nearly $300,000 a year. Our lifestyle improved, but somehow I felt like I was standing still while he raced ahead. Still, I convinced myself that his success was our success. That was what partners did, right? They lifted each other up. Looking back, the warning signs were there. I just chose not to see them. About 18 months before that fateful Friday, Derek started changing in small but noticeable ways. He began coming home later than usual sometimes, not until 9 or 10 at night. When I asked about it, he would wave his hand dismissively and mention meetings or client dinners. His phone, which used to sit casually on the kitchen counter, started living face down on the table. He would step out of the room to take calls, lowering his voice when he thought I might overhear. His appearance changed too. Derek had never been particularly vain, but suddenly he was buying new suits, expensive cologne, and going to the gym 5 days a week. When I complimented his new look, he barely acknowledged it, as if it was not meant for my eyes at all. Our physical relationship became almost non-existent. He was always too tired, too stressed, too preoccupied. On the rare occasions when we were intimate, he seemed distant, like his mind was somewhere else entirely. I tried to initiate conversations about what was happening between us, but he would shut me down, accusing me of being paranoid or needy. There were weekend business trips that seemed to pop up out of nowhere, conferences in cities I had never heard him mention before. He would leave on Friday afternoon and return Sunday night exhausted, but somehow energized in a way that did not make sense. One night, about a year ago, I saw a text message flash across his phone screen while he was in the shower. It said, "Missing you already." The sender's name was just a single letter S. When Derek came out of the bathroom, I mentioned it casually, trying to keep my voice steady. He laughed it off, saying it was probably a wrong number, or a colleague named Steve who had a weird sense of humor. I wanted to believe him, so I did. I told myself that every marriage goes through rough patches, that successful men face pressure I could not understand, that Derek was the same man I had married just under stress. I made excuses for him because the alternative was too painful to consider. But somewhere deep inside, a small voice was whispering that something was very wrong. I just was not ready to listen. The Friday evening of our 8th anniversary started with so much hope. I had spent the entire day preparing, wanting everything to be perfect. In the morning, I drove to the farmer's market to pick up fresh ingredients for beef Wellington, Derek's favorite dish. I selected the most beautiful cut of tenderloin hand-picked mushrooms and found the perfect puff pastry at the specialty bakery downtown. Back home, I transformed our dining room into something out of a romantic movie. I set the table with our wedding china, the set we only used for special occasions. I arranged ivory candles in crystal holders and placed a bouquet of red roses as the centerpiece. Soft jazz played from the speakers as I worked in the kitchen, carefully preparing each component of the meal. I even put on the red dress that Derek had once told me made me look stunning. I curled my hair the way he liked it and wore the diamond earrings he had given me for our 5th anniversary. Standing in front of the mirror, I felt excited for the first time in months. Tonight was going to be different. Tonight we would reconnect and remember why we fell in love. At exactly 6:30, I heard his car pull into the driveway. I lit the candles quickly and positioned myself by the table, ready to greet him with a smile. When Derek walked through the door, I noticed immediately that something was off. He did not look at the decorated dining room. He did not comment on my dress or the aroma of dinner cooking in the kitchen. His expression was flat, almost businesslike. He walked past me without a kiss, without even a hello. He sat down at the table and placed a manila folder directly between the candles. When he finally looked up at me, there was no warmth in his eyes. Just cold calculation. "We need to talk about our future, Ava," he said. My heart started pounding as I sat down across from him. I watched as he opened the folder and spread out the papers inside. Even upside down, I could read the heading on the first page: Petition for Divorce. For a moment, I could not breathe. The room seemed to spin around me as I stared at those words. This could not be happening. Not tonight. Not on our anniversary. Derek leaned back in his chair and actually smiled. It was the kind of smile I had never seen on his face before, self-satisfied and almost cruel. He began speaking in a tone that suggested he had rehearsed this moment many times. "I have met someone else," he said as casually as if he were discussing the weather. "Her name is Simone. She works at my company, and we have been together for 14 months now. She is 28, energetic, and she understands me in ways you never could." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. 14 months. More than a year of lies, of deception, of making me feel crazy for noticing that something was wrong. But Derek was not finished. He leaned forward, his elbows on the table, that horrible smile still on his face. "Here is how this is going to work," he continued. "You have 2 options. Option 1, you accept Simone as part of our lives. She moves in and we continue as a family of 3. You will learn to get along with her and we will maintain appearances. Option 2, you sign these divorce papers. I have already had my lawyer draft the terms. You will get the car, some furniture, and $20,000. The house, the investments, everything else stays with me." He paused, clearly expecting me to react, to cry, to beg, to fall apart. "I know you will choose to stay," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Where else would you go? Your little design business depends entirely on my connections. Your whole life is built around mine. You have nothing without me." Then he delivered the final blow. "My mother knows about Simone, by the way. She supports my decision. She always said you were not good enough for me, and now I finally see she was right." I sat there in silence, letting his words wash over me. He wanted me to crumble. He expected me to dissolve into tears and accept whatever scraps he was willing to throw my way. That was the version of Ava he thought he knew. But as I stared at him across that candlelit table, something shifted inside me. I thought about my mother Linda, who had raised my brother and me alone after my father died when I was 12. I remembered her strength, her dignity, the way she never let anyone make her feel small. I could hear her voice in my head clear as day. "Your worth is not defined by a man, Ava. Never let anyone convince you otherwise." In that moment, looking at the stranger sitting across from me, I realized something profound. I did not need Derek. I had only grown accustomed to his presence like a bad habit I had been too comfortable to break. The man I had married no longer existed if he ever had at all. I took a deep breath and felt my spine straighten. The tears that Derek expected never came. Instead, I felt a cold clarity settle over me like armor. I stood up slowly from the table, my movements deliberate and controlled. Derek watched me with a puzzled expression, clearly confused that I was not following his expected script. I walked around the table and picked up the stack of divorce papers, taking my time to flip through each page. "Interesting," I said, my voice steady. "You had this all planned out, did you not?" Derek laughed nervously. "Ava just signed the papers and accept reality. Do not make this harder than it needs to be." I set the papers back down on the table and looked him directly in the eyes. "You know what, Derek, I have been waiting for a sign to change my life. Thank you for finally giving me one." His smile faltered. This was not how it was supposed to go. "I will not sign this version," I continued. "But do not worry, my lawyer will be in touch with yours very soon to discuss terms that are actually fair." Derek's face went pale. "Your lawyer?" "What are you talking about?" I let the silence stretch between us for a moment, enjoying the confusion spreading across his features. "Did you really think I did not notice, Derek? The late nights, the secret phone calls, the mysterious business trips, I am not stupid. 6 months ago I hired a private investigator to follow you. I know everything about Simone, about the apartment you bought her with our money, about every lie you have told me." He stood up so quickly that his chair scraped against the floor. "You had me followed. That is a complete violation of my privacy." "Privacy?" I laughed, and it was not a kind laugh. "You want to talk about violations? You have been sleeping with another woman in hotels paid for with our joint credit card. You have been transferring money from our savings to accounts I did not know existed. You bought your mistress a $200,000 apartment using funds that belonged to both of us." Derek's face cycled through several emotions. Shock, anger, fear. Finally, it settled on something that looked almost like panic. "Ava, wait. Let us talk about this. We can work something out. Simone, she does not mean anything. It was just a mistake. 14 months is not a mistake, Derek. It is a choice. A choice you made every single day when you looked me in the eyes and lied." I walked to the coat closet and pulled out a small suitcase I had packed 3 weeks earlier, keeping it hidden for exactly this moment. "I am going to my mother's house tonight," I said. "You will be hearing from my attorney, Harold Whitman, on Monday morning. I suggest you get yourself a very good lawyer, because you are going to need one." Derek grabbed my arm as I headed for the door. "You cannot do this. I will ruin you. I will tell everyone what a terrible wife you were. I will make sure your business fails." I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. "Let go of me, Derek." Something in my tone made him release his grip. I opened the front door and stepped out into the cool evening air. 8 years ago," I said, turning back to look at him one last time, "I married a man I thought I knew. Tonight I am freeing myself from a stranger." As I walked to my car, I heard Derek fumbling with his phone, probably calling his mother to complain about how everything had gone wrong. I did not care. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Let me tell you about the 6 months before that confrontation, because the real story starts there. It was early January when I first allowed myself to acknowledge that something was seriously wrong. I found a receipt in Derek's coat pocket when I was taking it to the dry cleaner. It was from a hotel downtown for a room that cost $350 a night. The date was a Tuesday a day when Derek had told me he was working late at the office. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed next to my snoring husband and let myself consider possibilities I'd been avoiding for months. By morning, I had made a decision. I would find out the truth, whatever it was. I found a private investigator through a recommendation from a colleague whose husband had cheated on her years earlier. His name was Frank Morrison, a former police detective who now specialized in marital cases. I met him at a coffee shop far from our neighborhood, feeling like I was in some kind of spy movie. Frank was direct and professional. He explained his fees, his methods, and what I could expect. He also warned me that I might not like what he found. Most people who come to me, he said, already know the truth. They just need proof to believe it. For 3 months, Frank followed Derek. He documented every suspicious meeting, every unexplained absence. He photographed Derek entering Simone's apartment building multiple times, sometimes staying overnight. He obtained copies of hotel receipts, restaurant bills, jewelry store purchases. By April, I had a folder 2 inches thick with evidence of my husband's betrayal. The financial revelations were even more disturbing. Frank connected me with a forensic accountant who discovered that Derek had been systematically moving money from our joint accounts. Over the past 18 months, he had transferred nearly $170,000 to various accounts in his name alone. He had purchased the apartment for Simone using funds from our home equity line of credit, forging my signature on the documents. Armed with this information, I consulted with Harold Whitman, one of the most respected family law attorneys in Philadelphia. Harold was in his 60s with gray hair and a calm demeanor that immediately put me at ease. He reviewed everything Frank had gathered and outlined my options. "Your husband has made several serious legal errors," Harold explained. "The unauthorized transfers, the forged signatures, the use of marital assets for his mistress. These give you significant leverage in divorce proceedings. But we need to be strategic. If we tip our hand too early, he might try to hide more assets or destroy evidence." We developed a plan. I would continue to act normal around Derek, gathering more information, while Harold prepared our case. I would document everything, keep copies of all financial statements, and wait for the right moment to make my move. Those 3 months of pretending were the hardest of my life. Every time Derek kissed me goodbye in the morning, every time he told me he loved me before bed, I had to swallow my disgust and play along. But I kept reminding myself that this was temporary. Soon, I would be free. I arrived at my mother's house just before midnight. The porch light was on as if she had been expecting me. Linda opened the door before I could even knock, her silver hair pulled back in a loose braid, her reading glasses still perched on her nose. She looked at my face at the suitcase in my hand and simply nodded. "Come inside, sweetheart." My mother's house had not changed much since I was a child. The same floral wallpaper in the hallway, the same creaky third step on the staircase, the same smell of lavender and old books. Growing up here with my brother Marcus after our father died, this house had been my sanctuary. It felt right that I'd returned now at the end of my marriage. Linda made tea while I sat at the kitchen table, suddenly exhausted. She did not ask questions right away. Instead, she let me sip my chamomile in silence, her hand occasionally reaching across to squeeze mine. Finally, when I was ready, the words came pouring out. I told her everything. About Derek's affair with Simone, about his ultimatum, about the investigation I had conducted, about walking out on him tonight. She listened without interruption, her face calm, but her eyes reflecting a mother's pain at seeing her child hurt. When I finished, Linda was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. "When your father died," she said, "I was 32 years old with 2 children and no job. Everyone told me I should find another man quickly, that I could not possibly make it on my own. But I knew something they did not. I knew my own strength." She reached across the table and took my hands in hers. "You have that same strength, Ava. I have always seen it in you, even when you could not see it yourself. Derek tried to make you small, to make you dependent on him. But he failed. You are still here, still standing, still fighting." I finally let myself cry. Then not from sadness, but from relief. For so long I had been holding everything inside, maintaining a facade of normalcy, while my world crumbled. Now, in my mother's kitchen, I could finally let go. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the house looking like he had not slept. He was 4 years older than me, a quiet accountant who rarely showed strong emotions. But when he walked into the kitchen and saw me sitting there with coffee, his face twisted with barely contained rage. "I will kill him," he said. "I will drive to that house right now and beat him senseless." "No, you will not," I replied, surprised by how calm I sounded. "This is not a problem that can be solved with fists. I need to handle this legally, strategically. If you attack Derek, you will end up in jail, and he will use it against me in court." Marcus paced the kitchen floor, running his hands through his hair. I knew there was something wrong with him. I always knew. "Do you remember when he canceled your birthday dinner last year because of a work emergency? I saw him that same night at a restaurant downtown with a blonde woman." My heart sank. "Why did you not tell me?" "I did not want to accuse him without proof. I thought maybe it was a colleague or a client." He stopped pacing and looked at me with guilt in his eyes. "I should have said something. I am so sorry, Ava." I stood up and hugged my brother. "It is not your fault. Derek fooled all of us. What matters now is what we do next." On Monday morning, I arrived at Harold Whitman's office at 9 sharp. Grace, my best friend from college, who was now a corporate attorney, had taken the day off to accompany me. She was not a family law specialist, but she had dealt with complex legal battles before, and I trusted her judgment completely. Harold's office was on the 15th floor of a downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He greeted us with a firm handshake and got straight to business. "I received a call from Derek's attorney this morning," he said, spreading papers across his conference table. "They are clearly rattled. Derek apparently did not expect you to have legal representation, let alone evidence of his misconduct." Grace leaned forward. "What are they offering?" "Nothing yet. Right now, they are demanding to know what evidence we have. I told them we would discuss that in mediation, not over the phone." Harold smiled slightly. They did not like that answer. We spent the next 2 hours reviewing our strategy. Harold explained that we had several strong angles. First, Derek's unauthorized transfer of marital assets could be classified as dissipation of marital property. Courts looked very unfavorably on spouses who tried to hide or waste assets before a divorce. Second, the forged signatures on the home equity documents potentially constituted fraud. Third, Derek's use of company funds for personal expenses, which the forensic accountant had uncovered, could expose him to legal action from his employer. "Our goal is threefold," Harold explained. "We want a fair division of assets, compensatory damages for his financial misconduct, and a clean break that allows you to move forward with your life." As we were leaving the office, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I opened it to find a message that made my blood boil. "You think you have won. This is far from over. Derek will destroy you." It was from Diane Derek's mother. I showed the text to Grace. "Can you believe this woman? Her son cheats on me for over a year and she is threatening me." Grace shook her head in disgust. "Save every message. This could be useful in court." Over the next few weeks, Diane launched a full-scale campaign to turn people against me. She called relatives, friends, even some of my professional contacts. She told anyone who would listen that I was a cold, ungrateful wife who had driven her son into the arms of another woman. She claimed I was mentally unstable, that I had made up the affair to get a bigger settlement. Some people believed her. I lost a few clients who had been referred through Derek's network. Certain mutual friends stopped returning my calls. It was painful, but also clarifying. I learned very quickly who my true friends were. Derek contributed to the smear campaign through social media. He posted cryptic status updates about toxic relationships and finally being free to live authentically. Without naming me directly, he painted himself as the victim of an unhappy marriage. The comments from his followers, mostly people who did not know our real situation, were full of support and sympathy for him. But I refused to engage publicly. Harold had advised me to stay silent online and let my case speak for itself. "The court of public opinion is irrelevant," he said. "What matters is what we can prove in the actual court." Grace became my rock during this period. She came over to my mother's house almost every evening, bringing takeout and wine and a sympathetic ear. One night, as we sat on the back porch watching fireflies, she asked me how I was really doing. "Honestly," I said, "some days I feel strong, like I can handle anything. Other days I wake up and forget for a split second that my life has completely changed. Then I remember, and it hits me all over again. Grace nodded. That is completely normal. You are grieving Ava. Not just the end of your marriage, but the loss of the future you thought you would have. Give yourself permission to feel all of it. As our legal team continued building the case, new information emerged that changed everything. Frank Morrison, the private investigator, had maintained surveillance on Simone even after I confronted Derek. About 3 weeks after I moved out, Frank called me with news that made my jaw drop. "Your husband's girlfriend has quite a history," he said. Her real name is Simone Garrett, but she has used at least 3 other aliases over the past decade. 7 years ago, she was involved with a wealthy businessman in Florida named Thomas Richardson. She convinced him to give her access to his finances, then disappeared with nearly $200,000. He tried to press charges, but she had moved out of state and used a different name. I was stunned. Derek was not just a cheater. He was being actively conned by a professional scammer. Frank provided me with Thomas Richardson's contact information. I called him that evening, unsure of what to expect. Thomas was 71 years old, a retired real estate developer who had lost his wife to cancer. Simone had targeted him at a grief support group of all places. She was so kind at first, Thomas told me, his voice heavy with old pain. She listened to me talk about my wife, held my hand when I cried. She made me feel less alone. I thought I had found someone to share my remaining years with. Instead, Simone had slowly gained access to his bank accounts, credit cards, and investment portfolio. She convinced him to take out a second mortgage on his home, claiming she wanted to start a business together. When the money was gone, so was she. I was ashamed, Thomas admitted. A man my age fooled by a young woman. My children did not speak to me for months. I lost everything except my Social Security and a small pension. By the time we finished talking, I had a much clearer picture of who Simone really was. She was not some naive young woman who had fallen for a married man. She was a predator who deliberately targeted vulnerable people. I shared this information with Harold immediately. He agreed that it could be useful in court, demonstrating that Simone had manipulated Derek and that any money he had given her was essentially stolen through fraud. But there was more. The forensic accountant Harold had hired to examine our finances made another alarming discovery. Derek had been submitting false expense reports to his company for over 2 years. He claimed business dinners that never happened, charged personal hotel stays as client meetings, and used his corporate credit card for gifts to Simone. The total amount exceeded $50,000. This was not just a violation of company policy. It was potentially criminal fraud. Harold and I discussed what to do with this information. If we reported Derek to his company, he would almost certainly be fired and possibly prosecuted. That would devastate him financially, but it would also complicate our divorce proceedings. An unemployed Derek with criminal charges would have less money to divide. On the other hand, if we stayed silent and the company discovered the fraud later, I could potentially be implicated as an accomplice. After all, I was his wife during the time he committed these crimes. After much deliberation, I decided to handle this delicately. Rather than filing a formal complaint, I requested a private meeting with Jonathan Blake, the CEO of Derek's company. Harold advised me on how to frame the conversation carefully, providing information without making accusations. We met at a small coffee shop in a different part of the city, away from prying eyes. Jonathan was in his late 50s, a polished executive who had built the company from a small startup to a major marketing firm. He listened intently as I explained my situation. "I want to be clear," I said. "I am not here to destroy Derek. I am here because I believe you deserve to know what has been happening in your company. What you do with this information is entirely up to you." I handed him a folder containing the documentation the forensic accountant had compiled. Jonathan flipped through it silently, his expression growing grimmer with each page. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention," he finally said. "I appreciate that you handled this discreetly rather than going public." "I have no interest in publicity," I replied. "I just want a fair divorce and a chance to move on with my life." Jonathan nodded. "You will have our cooperation in any legal proceedings. And Mrs. Harrison, I am sorry this happened to you. Derek spoke about you often at work. He made it sound like his marriage was perfect." "It was an act," I said. One of many. 3 days later, Derek was suspended from his position pending an internal investigation. His company email was locked. His projects reassigned his corner office packed up in boxes. The fall from grace had begun. The mediation was scheduled for a Thursday morning in early June. It was held in a neutral conference room at the courthouse, with a professional mediator presiding over the proceedings. Derek arrived with his attorney, a slick man in an expensive suit who seemed more interested in billing hours than actually resolving anything. Derek himself looked nothing like the confident man who had placed those divorce papers on our anniversary table. His face was drawn, his eyes tired. He had lost weight, and not in a healthy way. Simone was notably absent. Derek kept checking his phone throughout the session, clearly waiting for messages that never came. Harold began by presenting our evidence in a calm, methodical manner. The photographs of Derek and Simone, the financial records showing unauthorized transfers, the forged signatures on loan documents, the expense report fraud at his company. With each piece of evidence, Derek seemed to shrink smaller in his chair. His attorney tried to object to claim the evidence was obtained illegally, but Harold shut him down quickly. All of this information was gathered through legal channels. Your client's behavior is not a matter of interpretation. It is documented fact. We took a break mid-morning, and I stepped outside for some air. Through the window, I could see Derek arguing with his attorney in the hallway. His voice was raised, his face red with frustration. Whatever plan he had walking into this mediation, it was clearly falling apart. When we reconvened, Derek's demeanor had changed. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that almost looked like desperation. "I want to make a deal," he said, ignoring his attorney's attempts to silence him. "Whatever you want, Ava. Just stop this. My career is destroyed. My reputation is ruined. What more do you want from me?" I looked at this man I had once loved, this person I had built a life with, and felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction or triumph. Just sadness. Sadness for the years I had wasted the love I had given to someone who did not deserve it. "I want what is fair, Derek. Nothing more, nothing less." The mediator stepped in to refocus the conversation. Over the next 4 hours, we hammered out the terms of our divorce. The house would go to me since I had made the down payment from my savings before we married, and had paid the majority of the mortgage with my income. Derek would pay spousal support for 3 years while I rebuilt my business. He would also compensate me for the marital assets he had improperly transferred to Simone and his personal accounts. As for Simone, the universe had delivered its own justice. 2 weeks earlier, Derek had discovered that she had emptied the joint bank account they shared and sold the apartment he had purchased for her. The money, nearly $220,000, was gone. Simone had vanished, leaving no forwarding address and blocking all of Derek's attempts to contact her. Derek had been conned by the woman he had left me for. There was a certain poetic justice in that, though I took no pleasure in it. He had lost his wife, his career, his savings, and his mistress in the span of a few months. He would have to rebuild his life from scratch, assuming he even knew how. The final divorce decree was signed in late July. I walked out of the courthouse that day feeling lighter than I had in years. Grace was waiting for me on the steps along with my mother and Marcus. They had all taken the day off to be there for me. "It is over," I said, holding up the signed papers. "I am free." My mother hugged me tightly. "You were always free, sweetheart. Now the law just agrees." We went to my favorite restaurant for lunch, ordering champagne and appetizers, and laughing like we did not have a care in the world. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was not carrying the weight of someone else's lies. I was just Ava, 34 years old, starting the next chapter of my life. The weeks immediately following the divorce were harder than I expected. Even though I had won, even though I had done everything right, the grief still came in waves. There were mornings when I woke up reaching for Derek, forgetting for a moment that he was gone. There were evenings when the silence of the house felt suffocating. I threw myself into reorganizing my home. I repainted the bedroom in soft blues and greens, replacing the dark colors Derek had preferred. I bought new bedding, new curtains, new artwork for the walls. Slowly, the space began to feel like mine again. My mother stayed with me for the first month, helping with practical tasks but also simply being present. She did not try to fix anything or offer advice. She just sat with me while I processed the enormity of what had happened. Some nights we stayed up late watching old movies and eating popcorn. Other nights I just needed to sit in silence while she knitted in the chair beside me. The nightmares came and went. Dreams where Derek was still there, where we were happy, where the affair had never happened. I would wake up disoriented, then remember the truth, and the loss would hit me fresh each time. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, the pain began to ease. The nightmares became less frequent. The moments of forgetting grew shorter. I started to recognize that what I was mourning was not Derek himself, but the idea of who I thought he was. By autumn, I was ready to focus on rebuilding my business. The design firm had suffered during the divorce, losing some clients who had come through Derek's network. But Harold had negotiated a clause preventing Derek from interfering with my professional relationships, and slowly new opportunities began to emerge. I landed a major project through a client I had worked with years earlier, before Derek's influence had touched my career. Mrs. Patterson was renovating her historic Victorian home, and she remembered the work I had done for her sister. The project was challenging and consuming exactly what I needed. Through this project, I met Natalie. She was the general contractor on the renovation, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s who had started her own construction company after leaving a career in banking. We bonded over late nights at the work site, sharing stories of reinvention and second chances. "You know what I learned from my divorce," Natalie said one evening as we reviewed floor plans. "Losing the person you thought you would spend forever with is not the worst thing that can happen. The worst thing is staying with someone who makes you feel alone." Her words stayed with me long after that night. I had felt alone in my marriage for years, I realized. Lonelier in some ways than I felt now in my empty house. At least now the solitude was honest. I started taking care of myself in ways I had neglected during the marriage. I joined a yoga studio and discovered that I loved the practice the way it connected breath and movement. I began running in the mornings, watching the sun rise over the park near my home. I cooked elaborate meals just for myself, enjoying the process of creating something beautiful and nourishing. A year after the divorce was finalized, my business had not only recovered, but expanded. I hired 2 associate designers and moved into a proper office space downtown. The Patterson project had led to referrals, which led to more projects, which led to a feature in a regional design magazine. For the first time in my career, my success was entirely my own, untangled from Derek's connections. I ran into Diane once in a grocery store parking lot. She was walking to her car, looking older than I remembered. When she saw me, she stopped and stared for a long moment. I expected hostility. Instead, she just looked tired. "Ava," she said. And then quietly, "I am sorry." I did not know if she meant it. Maybe she was just worn down by watching her son's life collapse. Maybe she finally understood that she had been defending the indefensible. Either way, I simply nodded and walked away. There was nothing more to say. As for Derek, I heard through the grapevine that he had moved to a different state, taking a lower-level job at a small marketing agency. His reputation in Philadelphia was ruined, and he needed a fresh start somewhere. No one knew his history. I hoped for his sake that he would learn from his mistakes. But I did not spend much time wondering about him. He was no longer my problem. Looking back now from the vantage point of peace and healing, I can see how everything fit together. The pain I experienced was real and terrible, but it was also a doorway. On the other side was a version of myself I did not know existed. Stronger, wiser, more compassionate toward my own imperfections. I learned that love, real love, does not diminish you. It does not ask you to shrink or sacrifice your dreams or doubt your own perceptions. Derek's love, if it ever was love, did all of those things. I mistook his need for control as devotion, his jealousy as passion. I will not make those mistakes again. I also learned that being alone is not the same as being lonely. In the year since my divorce, I have felt more connected to myself than I ever did during my marriage. I know what I want, what I value, what I will and will not accept. That clarity is worth more than any relationship. The best revenge, I discovered, is not making your betrayer suffer. It is building a life so good, so full, so authentic, that their opinion ceases to matter. Derek wanted me to be small. He wanted me dependent on him, grateful for whatever crumbs he offered. Instead, I became the fullest version of myself, So if you are watching this and you are going through something similar, please know that you are not alone. The pain you feel right now is temporary, even though it seems endless. The shame and confusion will fade. What remains is your strength, the same strength you have always had, but perhaps forgot existed. Do not let anyone make you feel small. Do not stay in a situation that diminishes you just because leaving seems frightening. You deserve honesty. You deserve respect. You deserve a love that makes you feel more like yourself, not less. I am sitting on my back porch as I share this story, drinking coffee and watching the morning light filter through the trees I planted last spring. My house is quiet, but it is not empty. It is filled with choices I made for myself, with dreams I am actively pursuing, with a peace I never knew was possible. This is not the life I planned when I stood at that altar 8 years ago. It is something better. It is mine. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who thought you would stay, no matter how they treated you? What gave you the strength to leave? Share your story in the comments below. Let us build a community of people who chose themselves. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button so it can reach others who might need to hear it. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories about real people finding their way through impossible situations. And share this video with someone who needs to remember their own worth today. Thank you for spending this time with me. Remember, you are stronger than you know. The door that closes behind you might be the best thing that ever happened. Keep walking forward. Your new life is waiting.